I'm Ellen Wanjiru, and I'm joined by Mickey Down and Konrad K, all the way from the UK. And we are chatting it up about their new HBO series, Industry. How are you guys?
We're great, thanks.
Very well. Thanks for having us on.
Yes. How is life across the pond?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel it's very similar to life across the pond the other direction.
Exactly. We're experiencing the same thing at the same time, which is pretty wild. So I got to tell you, when I first read the press release and then watched the teaser, I just knew this was gonna be good. And then I watched the first 4 episodes, and November 9th can't come quick enough. The first thing that struck me was that you two are first-time creators, right? And also writers and executive producers on the series. How did your creative relationship come to be?
Well, we met at college, so like we met in the first. I mean, Konrad was one of the first people I met on my first day. He had been there for a year already, and we were really good friends very quickly. We didn't know writing at university at all. We didn't do much of anything really. Then we went into careers in banking because of all sorts of pressures.
Yeah,
And then like while we were in banking, like we didn't see much of each other, which is actually quite strange. And like it was only after I left after about a year in finance, and then I thought, okay, having done a job which I was not suited for, and that having to do a job which I hopefully was more suited for, I wanted Konrad to come and work with me because he's just incredibly talented and we were really good friends, and like I just wanted to spend time together. And then we the first thing we wrote together was something set in the world of finance. And like, it was more an exercise to see if we could write together, and also sort of a cathartic experience and experiment. And we just had such a good time, and like, we were so collaborative. And it was very weird, the fact that we had like exactly the same tastes of TV and films, books. And we like what we don't like. We also like, we like what we like. We don't like what we don't like. And then we started writing, and we made a sort of very, very micro budget feature film for no money, which actually did okay and got us to the attention of some production companies in the UK. And we had some stuff in development, and we were actually working with a production company called Bad Wolf and their CEO Jane Tranter on something else. And she said she discovered that we had both worked in finance, and she said, "Have you ever thought about writing about it?" And we said we had, and we had tried, and it felt like a bit of a sort of, it felt like anything that we could do in that space to us at that time felt like it could be derivative of other better work, and that it felt like those stories had been told already, like anything really in that space. But then she said, like, have you ever thought about writing it from the perspective of the young people in it? Which it was very strange that never occurred to us, because that's what our experiences were. And so like that was the key that unlocked the whole thing really. And like write about the people who have the least amount of power in this institution where a lot of people have power. And that became the dramatic core of the show.
And so, Konrad, how long were you in finance? I know, Mickey, you said a year, but Konrad, how long had you been in it?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
And I would say it took them about 18 months to find me out and realize how bad I was. And then I stuck around for another 18 months. Because these big institutions, they're big bureaucracies, and people like me can often fall through the cracks.
Right.
And because I wasn't costing anyone very much money, I could just sit in my seat and sort of be generally useless at my job. And then my boss eventually one sunny day pulled me into a room and said, "You're a really good guy, but I frankly think you're a dreadful salesperson." And and that was that really. And I never really looked back after Mickey. And then me and Mickey started writing together literally the next day, I think.
Wow. So as little kids, did you guys dream about, getting involved in TV and film in any capacity, or this just happened just by chance and you guys meeting?
Very vaguely. I mean, I used to make little short films and stuff when I was younger, like with my brothers. But like, I mean, the idea of it being a career was just nothing. There's not in my spectrum at all. Like, we both have immigrant mothers. Like my mum's from Ghana, Konrad's is from Poland. The idea of us saying we wanted to be writers just didn't really make sense. And like, especially, I was like, okay, I'm going to leave this like quite well-paid job in finance, which is relatively stable for a career writer. My mum was like, "You're joking." So yeah, it wasn't really. I mean, it was more the fact that like doing something that we were not suited for. Or for me, I was ill suited to finance. So, like that really pushed me in the direction of trying to find something that I really liked and enjoyed and was slightly, hopefully, better at.
And what about you, Konrad? Did you have dreams of getting into the film or TV industry as a kid?
I always loved writing, to be honest, and never it was, to be honest, like never from a point of view of screenwriting. I mean, I was a big fiction and non-fiction reader as a kid, and I always, I think like one day I do think I was like, oh, I'd love to be an essayist with the New Yorker or something, but then I never, as Mickey said, it felt like a inaccessible world, really. It felt like the sort of job that other people have, not the sort of job that I have, and yeah, I mean, a lot of it was kismet, me and Mickey meeting in some ways, because as well as being very close, and I was best man at his wedding, and we're very very close friends. It requires a lot of drive to try and be successful in this business, and I think we were very lucky to come together at a point in our lives where we both really wanted some direction, and Mickey has, and I don't mind saying this, he's a very confident guy, and he has a level of self-belief which I often lack. So putting us together, it was like the perfect time in our lives for us to kind of like bite down hard and really try and make a go of frankly a job where the odds of success are incredibly long.
And so, Mickey, you spoke about this already a little bit. There are quite a few shows based in the finance world already in existence, but I think this industry is so unique. How important was it to set it apart from the rest? I mean, it was the majority of that based on your real life experiences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the DNA of me and Konrad's across all the characters, and some of the scenarios that the characters find themselves in are similar to ours, if not our friends' lives and careers. But like, it wasn't that we wanted to sort of set ourselves apart from those shows that came before and the art that came before. It was more just like, what is a new way into this slightly old world? What is the most unexpected way into it as well? And it wasn't as cynical as well as like, we're going to find these like 5 characters which we've never seen in the bank before and then tell their stories. It was more just like, we gravitated towards those characters because they were people we'd never seen before. We thought they were interesting. And like, it just felt like, a fresher, more novel way in.
Yeah. And so industry has all the elements that ought to exist in a compelling series. I mean, that's what kept me hooked for each episode. I mean, ambition, youth, sex, drugs, romance, but yet it also examines, important issues, gender, race, class, and privilege, all in the workplace. Was that a challenging sort of task to kind of finally balance those elements without it feeling contrived?
It's a good question. I mean, what you're kind of talking about there, I think, is how me and Mickey sometimes think about the show a little bit, which is the text of the show and the subtext of the show. And the text of the show is everything you're talking about, and it's so gratifying to hear you like connect with all that stuff, because it's what me and Mickey connect with. It's the youth, the romance, the buzz of the kind of just the energy of the piece, really, and how small story moments just can feel so emotionally big for these young people in this kind of extraordinary scenario they find themselves in, and the score and all this sort of stuff. But then on the deeper level, I mean, hopefully beneath that stuff is, in picking 5 characters from widely different backgrounds and widely different socioeconomic backgrounds across all the divides that we talk about, it was part of what is interesting about it as a place to set drama is people are often told that when they enter the institutions that they're a very pure meritocracy, and the moment you basically arrive there, you can shed your baggage of who you are. We all start on the same starting line, and effectively you fire the starter gun and you just say go. And what we were interested in was like, okay, that's what gets you through the door. But then slowly, people come up against different ceilings, and those sort of ceilings and those kind of say I'll give you an example from the show, like the relationship that people have with their bosses and the role that mentors play in a career. These were like universal work stories that we thought were really pertinent to 2020 and to anybody who works in an office, really. And then like for us it would be negligent to write a show about a workplace in 2020 and not engage with the wider cultural conversation around certain things, workplace practices, misconduct, all that sort of stuff. And we didn't write about it. It wasn't like, this is what we think about it. This is, this is a didactic experience where we're going to hit you over the head and say, finance is bad, it's unethical, and the people who work in there are toxic. We were just trying to show the contradictory nature of some of these people and trying to make them as compelling as possible. But I don't think by the time you get to the end of the 8th episode, I think mine and Mickey's view on that world and what it does to people is actually pretty clear. But hopefully it never feels like you're, drinking medicine or whatever the expression is.
I mean, that's one of the unique things about the show, the connections amongst the graduates, but also with senior management. They all vary. Like Harper and Eric's connection seems so meaningful, but that's not necessarily the case for Gus or for Yasmin. And so were those both of your, did you experience sort of both kind of different levels of relationships, bad, good, or worse? Mickey, you can start.
I guess that's a really interesting point you've touched upon, the fact that and this is to some extent what the show is talked about. I'm not sure it's about the importance of chance and luck in a career. And if you sit next to someone that sees you as an individual, sees you as someone, an equal, sees you as someone to be someone to be championed, then your experience of an institution and a job is going to be very different if to someone that sits next to someone that sees someone as a pest or someone as someone that to resent. And especially in the relationship between Harper and Eric and how that contrasts with the relationship between Kenny and Yasmin. I mean, these places are quite odd and unique in the fact that you're sitting next to someone that is so senior to you on your first day. And so it's done like that so you can learn from people very quickly. And obviously you're working for someone. But then Harper sits next to Eric. Eric sees Harper as a kindred spirit. They see each other as sort of cut from the same cloth, came from very little, both Americans in London, a little silo in this sort of quite strange atmosphere to them. Whereas he also sees someone that has a go-get and a drive and an ambition to succeed, and he thinks, I'm going to nurture that and bring that out. And my practices they might feel like abuse sometimes. But to him, it's okay, I'm gonna ride you really, really hard because I know you to make you the best person that you can be. Whereas someone like Yasmin who maybe has had a lot, not handed to her, but a lot has fallen in her lap in her life. She goes into this institution expecting that to be the case there as well, and she gets put next to someone who sees all the things she has and the fact that life has fallen into her lap and resents it massively. And thinks, okay, well, I'm going to make that person feel really small because people like that made me feel small at one point in my life. And that's her entire career is upended because of that. We play with this later on in the series a bit. But there are certain people working on that floor who, if Yasmin sat next to them at the start of her career, she would be flying in the same way that Harper was. It's just because she's sitting next to someone that did not see the best things about her and her ability as a salesperson that she ends up where she is.
One of the things that drew me to this entire series is the fact that there is a Black female lead in an industry that you don't really see a lot of that. And initially I thought to myself, well, why that decision? But then as the 4 episodes played out and I started to learn more about Harper and her relationship with Eric and that purpose, it made sense. I don't know that they could have been anybody other than, I mean, I'm sure it could have been, but I think it was perfect that it was her. In film and TV, men are usually the ones portrayed as abusing their power. But then comes this wicked plot twist with Nicole, the client, and her interaction with Harper. Why the decision to make that character a woman instead of a man? Conrad?
Do you want to answer it? Or?
No,
Sure.
You answer it, mate. You started.
I mean, it wasn't as cynical as let's try and be subversive and subvert expectations. It was just to be honest, it was we created that character first. And we thought that's the sort. We created Nicole. We created someone that incredible amounts of power in the industry, possibly quite abusive, likes the sound of her own voice, not very nice to people who are junior to her and to other people, and from that character came that moment between Harper and her. It wasn't okay, let's do a sexual assault plot line. I'll try and figure it, and let's try to figure out the most unlikely person to do that. It was more from a point of what is this person capable of? and like let's
Yeah.
push that to its real extremes, and that's where we took it.
Part of it, of course, in microcosm was, like we wanted Harper's journey in the pilot to be a microcosm of her journey over the series on some level. And, the kind of the decision to enter somewhere where you're such a gross outsider, to be made to feel like an outsider at almost all turns by pretty much everyone except your boss, to have this thing happen to you, have such an abuse of power happen, and then to have someone that you have such a close, kinship with in the pilot, have him die trying to fulfill his, trying to fulfill the job or fulfill the needs of the job, and then still double down on the decision that you want to be part of this environment and succeed in it is as I say, it's kind of a mini arc for her that we try and really replicate throughout the season, which is kind of like, what is the personal cost of doing this thing, and quite frankly, how much punishment am I willing to take to be successful in this place? So yeah.
Yeah, you guys, I think, hit the jackpot, not only with this just awesome writing and producing, but with this cast. My God, everyone is just so special in their own right. And what I enjoyed most about just the character development is, at first you start out thinking that you know each character, but then all these little things happen throughout, even down to Nicole, her interaction with Harper, and then she ends up helping her. At the end, I was kind of like, wait, all right, is she bad? Is she good? Like, how do those things kind of coexist together? And it's okay. So I'm curious to see, how the next 4 episodes play out, and why only 8 episodes as opposed to 10 or 12? Because I'm like, listen, I need more.
So good that you did more.
Yeah.
Everything you just said is music to mine and Mickey's ears about ambivalence and about shades of black and white in characters, good and bad. I think there's a tendency. I think the key to good drama is characters who feel like they can be contradictory and still feel like they're different sides of the same coin that meet in the middle. That's a bit of a tortured way of saying it, but what I mean is, it was very important for us to put, for example, Yasmin or Harper, to put complex, contradictory people on screen who seem to see or do things which sometimes you don't really agree with, but through the performance and hopefully through the reality of the writing, always deeply empathetic. And we weren't really interested in writing like a big evil character who wasn't in some ways capable of then being kind in another scene, because to us that didn't feel very human. And we were always writing towards a thing of like, how can we make this feel as human and as real as possible, and make sure we're never dealing in cliches or stock characters. And like for us, we it's exciting for us when we write, and not to put it in too grand terms, but for us it's important, if you're going to tell stories and you get given the privilege to tell stories, that you try and do something slightly groundbreaking or radical. And the only way you can really do that is to take stereotypes you think and then slowly unpick them and say, well, actually that's not what the world is like at all, and that's just received information that you've got through bad art or just the status quo. And me and Mickey have just never been really interested in writing about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes these characters so relatable. Which I think is what makes for good TV and good film. If I can watch something and I can potentially see myself in there, or I can relate or empathize with this character. Maybe that's not so good, but there's something about him or her that I can connect to. I gotta tell you, I get the same butterflies watching this as I did when I first started watching Billions on Showtime. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Billions, but this is so much more relatable and connecting, and I absolutely love it. Thank you so much, you guys, for talking to blackfilm.com. The show comes out Monday, November 9th on HBO at 10 p.m. Is there anything you want to share about the show we should look forward to? Anything we haven't discussed?
Nothing other than thank you so much for having us. And we really hope people enjoy it. It's been a real labor of love and at times a quite arduous process for two people who have never done it before. So as long as I hope for some of that passion and that hard work comes through in the material.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
The one thing I will tease is that episode 6 is a very, very, very fun Christmas party episode, which you should look out for.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. I had my interview with Harper on Friday last week, and I told her that I've already spoken season 2 in existence. Like, there will be a season 2. That's how good this series is. I'm putting it out into the matrix already. So congrats. An awesome show, you guys. And I look forward to seeing what else you write and what else you produce and what else we can watch from you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great time.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.